and we're going to speak to you about the Ten Commandments. And as I have told you, we'll take this extremely slow because how far we get today is irrelevant. How far we get next week, we have all the time in the world to sit and understand this, because you have never ever before looked at the Ten Commandments and understood them. You have never ever looked at them from a cosmic standpoint to understand what is being said. So if you go on page 64 of these little Bibles, you come to the book of Exodus, and you get to Exodus at a point, Exodus chapter 20, and this is where it starts. And we've come through the out of Egypt, we've crossed the Red Sea of the emotions, we've crossed the desert of meditation, and now you get to the point of actually understanding something that has never been able to be revealed to you before, and this is the magnificence of what dwells within you. Look at Exodus chapter 20. And in Exodus chapter 20 and verse 1 it says, "And God spoke all these words." Okay? Now, here we go in Exodus chapter 20, verse 2, and says, "I am the Lord your God, which have brought you out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of bondage." And for those of you who haven't been here, I'll show you exactly where that is, okay? Right here is Egypt, okay? That's the place of bondage. That's the place of fear. That's the place of guilt. That's the place where disease originates. It's the left side. And you came out of there, and you crossed the Red Sea of your emotional nature, and you entered into the meditational place of the desert, and you got to the mountain of fire where we were last week, and now you come to the point of understanding cosmic law. You cannot, many of you who have not heard this can be extremely foreign to you. You've never heard anything like this before. But one thing you have heard, and one thing you have seen, you've heard the bombs explode. You heard the screams of the people. You've seen the children in fear. You've seen the drug peddlers, and you've seen all of these things going on for 2,000 years while we sang songs in these churches. But you've never understood that there is something inside of you that is in bondage. There was never a story of people crossing a desert out of Egypt. It never happened. It never existed. There's absolutely no historical evidence of any kind of this ever happening. Because this is a myth. But a myth is not something where, oh, this never happened. A myth is saying this does happen. But it's talking about a movement from within you, across and out of a place of fear, out of a place of law and doctrines, across a meditational place of consciousness to a new life, to a new understanding. If we don't adapt and realize that it is in here that has to be changed, then little Emily Ann has no better chance than the rest of this world has had. But if we do understand that, then she has a chance of living in a world where people will reach out and embrace one another and embrace nature. So it says, "I am the Lord your God." You're delivered out of the bondage of the left side. You're delivered out of the fear. You're delivered out of the guilt. And who delivered you? I am. I am. I am the Lord your God is an identification. God's name is I am. Never forget that. Most important thing you can hear. If I was to say to you, and I want you to yell back to me, okay, if you know the answer to these questions, I have just told you God's name by showing it to you in the Bible. So if I say to you, who is the President of the United States? Yell back to me. We got to go slower. We have to go a lot slower. Let me give you a little tip. Name is Billy, his first name. Name is Bill Clinton. I know it's hard. I know it's difficult. These are tough questions, but, you know, I'll bet you we do it better second time. Here, let me write it down. Okay, here, so that makes it easier. All right, all ready? Now you can see, can you see over here who it is? Okay, all right. Who is the President of the United States? Who is God? And of course, Bill Clinton probably thinks he is. That's not the point. All right. So we have an identification. We have an identification for a particular. Why do you think this mystical book identifies God as I am? So no matter when anybody says, who is God, you have to say, if you're going to be true to the Scriptures, I am. I am. That would identify the God who dwells within you and is part of your being. The God always identified in mystical writings as I, me, I am. Go to page 48 in those little Bibles. Exodus chapter 3, page 48. How are you, Miss Ethel? You missed the christening, but we'll do it again later. Mitchell will love that, won't he? Exodus chapter 13. And look at the last line. It says, Moses, when I ask me, what's God's name, what am I going to say? Look what it says. And God said, you say, I am, that I am. And say unto the children of Israel, I am has sent you. I am. Now, watch this very carefully. And this is very important. This word am is not a word. Am is the present tense. Okay? It is the present tense, and it is the first person singular. Thank you, teacher. Singular. What is it? Now listen to me very carefully. What has just been told to you? Who is God? I. I. The present I. The first person, the single I. Who is God? I am. You're a teacher. You're the teacher. Am I right that this is the singular, first person? Then God is the single I. Thank you. Now, that's just the beginning. We haven't even started. Now, why is that important? I want you to go to page 781 and look at Matthew chapter 6. Look what we've covered in the first 2 minutes of this. God is the single I. The present tense, I am is the single I is God. And look what it says in Matthew chapter 6 on page 781, Matthew chapter 6, verse 22. Therefore the light of the body is I. If therefore your eye be single, your whole body shall fill with light. The single eye. Now, what's interesting about this? The ancient people knew the single I am, the single I, to be the pineal gland of the brain. This isn't hocus pocus. It's not make-believe. This is a scientific fact. This pineal gland of the brain was known by the ancient people thousands of years ago. And what have we just found out in Newsweek magazine? The pineal gland of the brain secretes this hormone called melatonin, which they feel will retard the aging process, which they feel can heal cancer, can prevent breast cancer, do all of these things. There's 3 pages in Newsweek magazine. It's on the radios all over the place. There's something that just came in the New York Times. It says, health food stores all over the world are sold out of melatonin. And what is melatonin? Melatonin, among the other things, is a skin lightener. It lightens the skin. And Jesus just said, if your eye be single, your body will fill with words, if you start to pay attention to yourself and turn your gaze away from religion and turn your gaze away from religious teachers and turn your gaze away from books and instructions and start to look at the I am, the me, the single I within you, the pineal gland of the brain. Now let me show you something. Go to page 28 in the Bible and look at Genesis chapter 32. Page 28. Genesis chapter 32. And look at verse 30. Jacob sees God face to face. And look what it says. And Jacob called the name of the place Peniel, for I have seen God face to face. There it is. I don't know if Joan has any of those Newsweek articles with her. If any of you want them, you can see them, but it's in Newsweek and so forth and so on. The I am. Who is talking? I am. See, the point is this. The wars, the hate, the guilt, the fear, all of the things that have hurt people, all of the things that have hurt children, all of the things that have hurt the animals, all of the things that have hurt nature, all of the things that have separated have come from where? The minds of men and women all over the world. And they've come from within. If people thought differently, those things wouldn't happen. So the destruction does not come from some osmosis outside. The destruction does not come from some river. It doesn't come from some star. It comes from the minds of people. It comes from the way we think. If there is a war inside of your head, there's a war inside of your house. That's the way it is. You know what Buddha said? Buddha said all the terrible storms that you see are caused by the negative vibrations of millions of people going into the atmosphere. And who's to say is wrong? The negative vibrations cause war. Did you ever walk into your house and put off some bad vibes? Or did you ever go into a place and feel some bad vibes? You can feel it. You can sense it. And so who's talking? There is something talking to you right this minute inside of you saying, hey, I am. Look inside of yourself. Stop looking at the paper. Stop looking at the TV. Look inside and guess who's there? Guess who's there? I am. And now what is this? As I said to you, the ancients and the Buddhists and the Christians, the ancient people knew I is the name of God. I am is the name of God. I am is the single I, the pineal gland, and the other name was known of God as me. And look what it says in Exodus 23, and look at it's talking right within you. Exodus chapter 20. Go to page 64 again. Exodus chapter 20. And look at verse 3. You shall have no other gods before me. I am. You shall have no other gods before me. Say it to yourself. I am the Lord your God. I shall have no other stranger, no other gods before me. You start to learn. You start to understand. And the reference to me, let me show it to you. I'm going to give you something that most of you have never seen. And it's called the Bhagavad Gita of Hare Krishna. Okay? I want you to see it. Could you pass these out? Now, you guys, I really got to go fast. So, hurry. Ruth, hurry. And I want you to look at this, and I want you to read it with me. And there's a reason. This is out of an ancient Krishna testament 3,000 or 4,000 years before the Bible. And when it says in the Bible, I am, I shall have no other gods before me, I want you to share this, okay? All right, we're almost there. Okay, down to the last row. All right, looks like Cindy is, you're all just about done. You want to help out down there? You got any left? If you don't have any, you can share them with your neighbor. All right, now let's read, starting with the first line of this Bhagavad Gita. And what does it say? I am the same to all beings. I favor none and I have none. But those who worship me, they live in me, and I in them. Even the most sinful, if he worship me with his whole heart, shall be considered righteousness. He shall attain spirituality and eternal peace, and go on. And then to the next sentence, next part. For even the children of sinful parents and those called the weaker sex and merchants, if only they will make me their refuge, they shall attain to the highest. What need to mention the holy ministers? It says, do therefore, born in this changing and miserable world, do worship me. And look at the last paragraph. Fix your mind on me. Devote yourself to me. Sacrifice for me. Surrender to me. Make me the object of your aspiration, and you shall assuredly become me, one with me, who is your own self. I shall have no strange gods before me. See? And so there's not somebody bellowing from a mountain like some Cecil B. DeMille movie. Instead, there is something talking within you. This is the answer. This is the answer. See? Now, let me show you something of where your Bible and these things come from. I don't know how many of you have ever heard of the Egyptian Book of the Dead. But out of the Egyptian Book of the Dead comes the following, which says, I am is my rest in his season, even he who, when he manifests his plan, the company of the gods became his firstborn children. Okay? Now, what the Egyptian Book of the Dead, which, my God, you would never read that, of course, but the Egyptian Book of the Dead identifies I am. Okay? Who says, when I am manifests, the company of the gods becomes his firstborn children. Okay? Who the heck is that? Who's the company of the gods who becomes? When I am manifests. When I am manifest, the company of the God. In other words, when the single I, remember what we said, the word am means the single, it is singular, it is the single I, and when that manifests, the company of the gods becomes the firstborn. Who the heck is that? Go to page 876. And in page 876, look at this thing. It's in John chapter 10. John chapter 10. And look at verse 34. Here's a statement by Jesus. Is it not written, I said, you are gods? Is it not written, I said, you are gods? And what does the Egyptian Book of the Dead say? When I am manifests, when this starts to activate within you, the company of the gods, you and me, become the firstborn, the offspring, the identity, that which touches God. You know who is the... You look at the Pope, the one nice Pope. You look at Billy Graham, nice Billy Graham. You look at all of these people. You look at the Buddhists. You look at... Do you know in this room... And look at me, how much I know. I know all this stuff. Isn't that wonderful? But do you know who is the closest to God in this room? Stand up, Anne-Marie. Stand up, Anne-Marie. Turn around. Show them little Emily Ann. There's the closest to God. But why? Why is she the closest to God? Because we haven't gotten at her yet. We haven't messed up her head yet. She doesn't know about devils because there is no such thing. We have to teach her. She doesn't know about hell because there is no such thing. We have to teach her. She doesn't know about all of these rules and regulations and all of these things to make her guilty. We have to teach her all of that. But Louis and Anne-Marie took a vow this morning that they would teach her about love. They would teach her about Jesus. They would teach her about nature. They would teach her about peace. And she's going to live up and have a beautiful life. And she's not going to have a psychiatrist. And she's not going to have Rolaids and all of this stuff that we do. Now, look. We identified I am as the single I. We found that when it manifests, you become God. I didn't tell you that, folks. You could walk up and say, oh, this guy said we're God. I didn't say anything of the kind. I quoted the fellow name of Jesus. He's the guy that said it. And you saw it in the Bible if you took the time to look. He said, you are gods. Now, go to page 925. And in the book of Romans, in Romans chapter 8 and verse 29, it says, for whom he did foreknow, he did predestinate to be conformed to the image of his Son, that he might be the firstborn among many brethren. The Egyptian Book of the Dead says, when I am manifest, the company of the gods became his firstborn children. Jesus said, you are gods. And in this particular section, it says, this was planned. This was planned so that we would become the image of his son and the firstborn among many brethren. So the Egyptian Book of the Dead and the Bible say the same thing. Exactly the same thing. Now, let us demonstrate this thing. I shall have no other gods before me. And the Bhagavad Gita talked about me, me, me. I want you to see it out of the lips of Jesus. Go to page 869 and look at what it says in John chapter 5. This is Jesus talking about himself. I know that you go at Christmas time, and I know that you go to the different things, and I know that they say Jesus will do this for you, and Jesus will do that for you, and go to Jesus, and Jesus, and Jesus, and Jesus, and Jesus will do all these things for you. Okay, what did he say? Look at John chapter 5 on page 869. John chapter 5, verse 30. What does Jesus say? He says, I can of my own self do nothing. Shh. The child, Jesus himself says, I of my own self can do nothing. What can he do for you? What did he say he can do for you? Nothing. Why? Because he didn't come to this earth to show you how great he was. He came to this earth to show you how great you are. And he said, the things that I do, you can do better than me. But we couldn't deal with that. We got to have everybody guilty. We got to have everybody stressed. We got to have everybody frightened so they'll come and bow a knee so we can save them. And if he talks about himself, look at John chapter 5, right where you are. Look at verse 31. This is Jesus saying, if I bear witness of myself, my witness is not true. If I tell you I'm God, don't believe it, folks. It's a lie. If I tell you I can do this and do that and do the other things, don't believe it. It's not true. I didn't say that. Jesus himself said that. Now, here you have two scriptures in which Jesus, there's another scripture, I don't have it handy. I should have brought it with me, but there's a story in the Bible where a guy goes up and he asks Jesus, can you help me out with this problem? You know what Jesus' answer was? Who made me judge or divider over you? I mean, what do you get a cop. What do you need me for? What? I'm here, I got a bunch of guys hanging around. What do I know? That's what he said. And why is this all said in there? Because it's trying to get you to realize, stop looking on the outward. Stop taking children. That little child has to learn the beauty that is within her. The God, the Jesus that dwells within her. So she can nurture, she can be loving of herself, so she can be feeling within herself the goodness of nature. She doesn't have to be touched by all the fear and guilt and violence that we have set loose on this world. Now, Jesus had just said to you, I can do nothing of myself. Didn't he say that? Didn't Jesus just say to you, look, if I tell you something good about myself, it's not true. My witness is not true. Okay, fine. In a couple of pages, I want you to go to John 873, page 873, John chapter 8. We talked about me in the Bhagavad Gita. We talked about God in the Ten Commandments saying, I am, the singular, I shall have no strange gods. You shall have no strange gods before me. The Bhagavad Gita said, me, me, me. Now look at John chapter 8. Here is Jesus who just told you that he couldn't do anything, who just said he couldn't witness about himself because it wouldn't be true. But now look what he says. Hey, you neither know me, nor my Father. If you had known me, you should have also known my Father. He's not talking. He said, he just got done telling you, it's not me, Jesus. I'm talking about the me, the mystical me, the universal me, the me that Hare Krishna talked about. If you know me, in other words, you know what you got to say to yourself? Who is God? God is me. You know what you got to say to yourself? Inside of yourself? I've got to get to know me. And do you know who you don't know? Me. You want to get close to God? Then what do you say to yourself? I got to get close. Say it. Say it. I've got to get close. Who said that? And Jesus says, if you know me, you'll know God. Say that to yourself. If I know me, I'll know God. What is God's name? I. What did I say? I am. I am. I am. Who is God? What is God's name? Who is God? I am. I. Page 875. 875. John chapter 10. John chapter 10. Look at verse 30. I and my Father are one. I. We say that to yourself. I and my Father. Oh, it's me. It is me. Listen inside of yourself. You know, you've been taught to be a nudnik. You've been taught to be a fakak. That I told you you're worthless. You go to church and they say, all your righteousness is rags. You're guilty. You're sinners. You're worthless. And Jesus is screaming from the Bible, hey, you're the light of the world. Hey, you're special. Hey, let her speak to you. There's places where they get people to go in to confess to men. Those men should come and kneel and confess to her. Emily, and let Emily touch. Because when Emily touches your hand, the glory of God flows into you, because that's all that's in this child is God. Until we get a hold of her. We send her to our institutions. Right, Em? Boy, when you look into her eyes, you look into somebody who has had the most recent experience in the arms of God. She has. So many of us, we've forgotten about it. She didn't. You know how I know she didn't forget about her experience in the eyes of God? Look at her eye. Huh. See? Sit down with little Emily and sit down with a pussycat and you'll get close to God. Sit down with people and then run like hell. Now, we talked about I, the single I, and don't lose track of the fact that what this said was I am. You knew that am is very important because, as we know, that means the singular. The single I is God, and that's the pineal gland of the brain. And Jacob saw God face to face and called the place Peniel. That's what it said. I showed it to you. I didn't make it up. I showed it to you. It's in the Bible. It's not in a New Age book that we sell in the store written by whomever. It's in the Bible. You don't need to put rocks on your head or wave feathers or dance in smoke. It's in the Bible. Read the book. Sit down. Rest. Allow God to touch you. Say the book. Remember I showed you the Bhagavad Gita? I threw somebody on the ground. And the Bhagavad Gita said, fix your mind on me, devote yourself to me, make you me the aspect of that, by become one with me, who is your own self. Me, 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 me. Go to page 878, John chapter 12. John chapter 12. Okay, are you there? Verse 26. If any man serve me, let him follow me. And where I am, there shall my servant be. If any man serve me, him will my Father honor. Me. I am. Me. Now, why is this done this way? Why not just come out and tell everybody, hey, God's in your head? Yeah, I believe there's a God somewhere that thought you might realize that. He didn't really think that when he wrote a story about two naked people running around in a garden without their panties on, that they ran into a talking snake who said, hey, your shorts are missing. He didn't really think you were going to take this literally. Because he's up there talking to some other guy who helped him write it in the angelic heaven and said, these people really believe this. What do I do with this? Well, I don't know. They bought that, but let's write another one. Well, let's tell them a story about a guy that falls overboard and a fish swallows him and then pukes 3 days later. They'll get that. No, we didn't. No, we didn't. We bought it. Sounds good to me. Aye. Hook, line, and stinker. We bought that one. Well, we bought it all. But look why. I want you to go to page 789 and look at Matthew chapter 13. Page 789, Matthew chapter 13. And look what it says here in verse 10. And the disciples said, why do you speak in parables? You just say, you have such a hard time with this. Why do they speak in parables? You know? And you'll turn around to somebody today and say, you're full of baloney. What do you mean you're full of baloney? What did you have to eat? You had lasagna, didn't you? Why did you say he's full of baloney? Because he's off the wall. He's off the wall. I didn't know you were on. What, do you hang him on the wall? What is that? Why do you say he's off the wall? Because he shot his mouth off. Right, no scars. What do you mean he shot his mouth off? He spilled the beans. Spilled the beans. Pinto beans all over the floor. Spilled the beans. So I say to you, look, let's you and me go over and we'll sit down and we'll shoot the bull. All of these things are symbolisms. All of these things are hidden. Yet you'll sit down and you'll read this book and you take it literally. And the book says don't take it literally. It's symbolic. It's parables. It's done to make you think spiritually. It's done to make you think cosmic. Look at all the time of your life when you read the Ten Commandments, I am the Lord your God. You shall have no strange gods before me. All you could think of was some smoky thing on the top of a mountain billowing out all over the valleys and everybody's shaking. You never even dreamed for a minute that it meant I, the single I, God within you. You shall have no strange gods. And you know what we've done? What have we done? Have we made any strange gods? Have we made strange? Well, you know what we did? We created a God who decided to impregnate a young girl and get born inside of her so he could kill himself. And he's going to kill himself so he can forgive you for smoking, doing things that he put in your mind in the first place. And you know what? He's going to kill himself by having some people that don't know what they're doing do it. He's got some hitmen down there who don't even know who he is. In other words, we have created a God whose only way of forgiving you is to resort to violence. We have created a God whose only way of forgiving is to resort to bloodshed and to use innocent people to carry out his dastardly deed. And what's it say? You shall not have strange gods. And we've created them. I have a friend of ours who said, hey, you know what you've done? And we have a friend of ours who's a Sufi Muslim from Lebanon. And he said, let me tell you, he talks about deed, let me tell you the reason for the trouble. You created a God named Jehovah. And Jehovah said, take the land from the Arabs. So we created a God named Allah. And Allah said, get it back. And we create war gods. That's what we do. We create war gods. And you know what has happened? We are all warriors. You have had a hell of a war going on in your head since the time you've been born. It never stops. There are Scud missiles flying through your mind every day. You get up in the morning, what's the first thing you hear in your head? Machine gun bullets. All day long. All day long. Why? Because we don't know about it. We don't know of the peace of the center. We don't know of the understanding of I am. But look what it says in Matthew 13, verse 10, where you are on page 789. Why do you speak this way? He says, because it is given unto you to know the mysteries of the kingdom of heaven. Now, this is very important. The reason that these things are said this way is so that you can know the mystery of the kingdom of heaven. Now, isn't that great? Big deal. Where the heck is that? I don't want to know. Yes, you do. Why? Look at page 853, what it says. In Luke chapter 17. In Luke chapter 17, it says, verse 21, behold, the kingdom of God is within you. What did Jesus just said? The reason I talk this way is because those of you who want to take the time to study me, study I, come within, it is given unto you to know the mystery of yourself. And you and me are a mystery. And once you get inside of yourself, you know what's the first thing you'll find out? Why you exist. And I do this repeatedly, but there are some new people here. Do any of you know what this is? It's a speaker. You know what it's for? Music plays over it. You know what this is for? Decorating. This, you know what this is for? To write on. This is to hold the speech. This is decoration. Look at these chairs. These chairs are to sit on. Look at every screw. You know what the screws are in the chair? You know what the screws are in the chair? To hold the chair together. The pole holds the ceiling up. The lights so you can see. The walls and everything you can sit in. You know what everything in this room. Is there anything in this room you don't know what it is? You don't know what it's for? No, you don't. You know what everything is for. Now I want you to do this. Turn around and look at the person sitting next to you. What the heck for? And you know there are some of you that won't turn. I won't even turn because they'll all look at me. What the hell are you for? I don't know. The most magnificent creation in the room. The most magnificent creation in the world. We don't know. I don't know. I guess sex, peanut butter, Jimmy Buffett. I don't know. What am I here for? You don't know. And we act in the earth because we don't know. And we destroy it because we don't know. We haven't the slightest idea because we've never entered within ourselves and allowed the I to manifest it so that we become God. There is a left side of your brain that is you. There is a right side that is God, and you have never touched the right side. And in John 6, 7, whatever the heck it is, 20, Jesus said, cast your net to the right side, and you shall find. But look what it says where Jesus said in Matthew 13:10, and we're done. I know you're anxious to go because you've got a very important thing to do today. You have to go sit on the couch. And I don't want to hold you up from that. It's very important. You sit on the couch. You might have to even go up on the highway and look and see, where should I go? I don't want to keep you from that, so I'll get out of here in a minute. Matthew chapter 13, page 789. Matthew chapter 13. And this is why Jesus says that he teaches this way. Okay? Matthew chapter 13, verse 13. I speak to them in parables because seeing they don't see, and hearing they don't hear, and neither do they understand. And you know what? There's some of you who sat here today. And I know you can't wait to get out of here. Just sitting there looking at this nut standing up there telling you, let me the hell out. Let me get back to the good old USA. You know? Let me get out there and see if I can survive till tomorrow. Maybe I'll get hijacked in the shop right. I don't know, but it's fun. Yeah, I love the people. Don't you think it's worthwhile what you've heard today? You've heard even the very first thing out of the mouth of God. These are, I'm going through the 10 Commandments, and every one of them is a cosmic giant which will explode onto you, just like this one has. You've never heard this before. And this is the mystery. I am. Me. And that's why in the very first statement in the 10 Commandments it says, you shall have no other gods before me. Do you know why? Let me tell you something, and then we're done. I promise you this. I promise you this. Because it says, you shall have no other gods before me. Because when you don't understand that which is within yourself and you neglect it, you open yourself to fear, you open yourself to guilt, you open yourself to disease, you open yourself to depression, you open yourself to all types of hideous things because you don't understand the most important thing in your life. I don't understand me. And then you go to a psychiatrist to get him to explain you. And you know what? He doesn't understand me either. And that's why it's so important that, it says, I'm going to start this next week, but I just wanted to show you one last thing, and then you're out the door. Page 64, Exodus chapter 20. What? I won't be here. Week after. Exodus chapter 20. Okay, I just want to show you one last thing. Why is this important? Why is it important that we don't allow any of this stuff to enter into this child's beautiful head? Any of this fright and guilt and devils? And we stay away and just live. Why? Why is it important that he starts to understand? Why is it important? Why is it important that you? And let me show you the answer to it. Once you understand and you enter in and you start meditating, and you start to clear out all of that fear and all of that guilt and all of these things that have been put into your mind, watch why it's so important. Go to page 64, and then we're done with this. Exodus chapter 20. Look at verse 5. You shall not bow down to them. That'll take your attention away from yourself. You shall not serve them, for I am jealous, and I will visit the iniquity of the fathers upon the children unto the third and fourth generation of them that hate me. Do you know what you're doing? Do you know what we've done? Do you know what we've done to this world? Because of turning our attention away from here and giving it to religion and giving it to systems and giving it to try to be the way they want us to be, we have set up in our genetic systems from the very mind these things which we have passed down from generation to generation to generation. And we have passed down disease, we have passed down fears, we have given birth to people who wind up being serial killers and rapists and all of this kind of stuff because we have never learned the inner place of God, which is me, which is you, the temple within you. And if you will not have these strange gods before you, you will focus on me, on I am, and you will lift yourself into the blessings of nirvana and be one with the creation of the universe of nature, which is God, and be one with the mind of this beautiful, beautiful child who is of God, of Emily, of life, of peace, of goodness. And we haven't even moved past this very first statement of God on the mountain. But how important it is. I will pass none of this down to the children or to the generations to come, because I will stimulate and manifest me, and I will then live in the company of the gods. And that's up to you. Thank you very much. Thank you.